sat down 12 guys that were kind of rock stars in the industry, owners, all showed up from different parts of the country, sat in a hotel 1 month before COVID became a real media conversation, right? We spent 2 days talking about the future of the industry, mergers and acquisitions, consolidation, the pressure on the baby boomers, all that kind of cool stuff that I love to talk about all the time. And at the end, it was like, so would you guys want to start a peer group? It's the beginning of this idea that on top of average or normal performance or even high performance in our industry terms, there's a higher level of performance available when you build a human-centric, mastery-driven kind of a culture environment. You build a high-performance culture on purpose. You don't just fall backwards into whatever you have.
You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
All right, leaders, whether you're running a shop, leading a team, or leveling up in your career, you know details matter. And if you're like me, that includes keeping your beard on point. That's why I trust the Bearded Brotherhood. Their beard oils, beard balms, and mustache waxes, among other, are made with all natural ingredients, no junk, no shortcuts, just top-tier quality that keeps my beard looking sharp and feeling great. And let's talk scents. Whether it's their best-selling Woodsman or my personal favorite, Lone Stranger, the Bearded Brotherhood keeps me smelling fresh and my beard stays soft all day. If you take your beard game seriously, this is the stuff that you need. And because you're part of the Limitless Leadership Podcast family, I've got a deal for you. Just visit thebeardedbrotherhood.co/lead15 to grab your favorite products and get 15% off in the process. Because a great leader deserves a great beard. Now, back to today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Parnell. And before we get started with today's episode, don't forget to go like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you need to on social media. You can find the Limitless Leadership Podcast on all streaming platforms, including YouTube. You can watch this episode on YouTube. So go find The Bearded Leader on YouTube, and that's where you'll find this podcast. But speaking of leaders, I got a great leader who I'm joined with today. I've really been excited about this episode because one thing I do in the industry is bring a type of coaching that is not often at the center point of coaching, which is a leadership-focused coaching. And I'm joined today by another fantastic leadership coach in the industry. I'm joined by my friend, Michael Smith. Michael, thanks for being here, man.
Josh, thanks, man. You said the bearded. I wasn't sure if you were talking about you or me, and then I looked at the pictures. I'm like, you're clearly talking about you.
Well, the cool thing is you're also one of my bearded brothers. We both got a little beard, and hey, anyone who's got a beard is a friend of mine. So
there you go.
Michael, thanks for being here. I mean, I'm really impressed by the more I learn about you, the more you and I talk, and the more I see what you're doing in the industry. I'm really intrigued by it. I have a high respect for you and what you do, and I'm really excited for the audience to learn more about what that is as well. And so, as we get into this episode, go ahead and share with the audience who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Sure. I did, there's the long version, the short version. I won't make your people's ears bleed, right? We'll keep the short version. I grew up outside the industry. I did not own a shop, never have. Actually, I own parts of a shop now, but that's different. I came from the big consulting firms. I was in the big four, what's now the big four, on the consulting side. I spent time in the private investment world as well. And I spent time in small and mid-sized business ownership of different industries other than ours. About 10 years ago, I bumped into somebody at a coffee and started talking to them about their company. They had 3 locations. And those locations were not doing very well together. And he literally looked at me and said, "Hey, I know you don't know our industry, but I'm interested in your non-inside industry perspective. Can you come and basically do an assessment of my company and tell me what's going on?" And I loved his quote. He said, "I'm not making enough money or having enough fun to keep doing this if I don't do something different." Mm-hmm. So I said, "Do you want me to be nice or you want me to be mean?" He goes, "I want you to be mean. I want you to come in with your old Deloitte methodologies and do what you can." So together with his blessing, I shredded what I saw. And we looked at it from an outside view, and he looked at me and was real quiet for a minute. And he said, you know what, give me 3 months and I'm going to go work on the fundamentals, and I want to come back and I want to build an empire. So that guy I spent probably a decade with, went from 3 shops to 12 when we placed him in a private equity project. He will have on paper 30 by the end of 26.
Wow.
So, how to scale and do it with an outside investor's perspective is really, this is the reason I told you that story. That's really where I come from. I don't come as an inside operator. I come as an outside empire builder, investment perspective kind of a guy. And I grew up in consulting and training and coaching and peer groups and all that. So it was kind of a good fit. And when I met this industry, I have fallen in love with the owners here. These are great salt of the earth people, hard business. I tell everybody I talk to, I go, you're in the hardest small business I've ever seen in my 50, 60 industry verticals of experience. And people look at me like, what? Our business is hard. I go, you have no idea. There's so many easier ways to make money. And then we all laugh, right? And then I say, and what I know is easier to learn than what you guys have already learned. So Josh, you and I talked about, I'm here with the privilege of bringing more information to this industry in a critical time of industry transition, if you will. We're turning into something different in the next 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years. And so I'm just thrilled to be here and know you and all the folks I get to serve and the people out there that we can touch between you and me and all the folks doing what we do.
Thank you,
Good
Mike.
time to be
And
here.
the feeling is mutual. Go ahead and talk about the next 5 or 10 years, because we do see this shift turning. But what is that? Where is it turning? What's it gonna look like?
You're going to get an outsider's view, sort of a futurist type view, because that's what I grew up doing. So, I mean, I say to everybody, take it or leave it, agree with whatever I say, disagree with whatever I don't, right? But I showed up here 9, 10 years ago, and some of the first people I bumped into were the guys at the top of the parts companies, believe it or not, right? From the relationships I had at the shop level, I also got introduced to the people that were running, and I mean running, like the biggest names in the biggest companies. And we sat down and talked about what I could see for the future of the industry. And what I basically said was there's a tidal wave on the horizon of change, and it's centered in 2 things. One is the fact that people inside this business hate this language, but it is investment language. So I'm going to say it. This is one of the last great mom and pop. And again, I'm not downplaying the quality of what we do. This is the most professional business I know, but the investors call it a mom and pop industry. It's still populated by very small, privately owned corner to next corner, small businesses. And it hasn't really rolled up. And that the big boxes are out there. We know that. The dealerships are our competition. We know that. The Walmarts sort of came and went, and they still do a little bit of work, but we thought Sears was going to, all that stuff is now settling into the future of what we have. And you add to that, the baby boomer count. Most of the people in our industry, most of our companies are owned by boomers. Boomers this year are 61 to 79 years old. So they're looking for transition. 2007 and 8, when the financial crisis hit, a lot of the owners kind of lost a lot of their portfolio, whatever that meant to them, and they stuck around. So the boomers gave it a little more time. And then rolling into 2020, of course, we had the COVID speed bump for some, destruction for others. But the difference there was the government showed up and said, hey, here's a big old pile of money. Stick around because you're an essential business. They're like, well, okay, I might have thought about retiring, but maybe I'll stick around a little longer. And now this industry is just still full. It's a sort of a backed up accumulation of boomers. In the middle of the 2020 COVID time, the private equity firms were losing money in a lot of their investments. Their high-end restaurants, nobody showed up for dinner. Their strip malls, nobody was shopping. And so they got extra intense about looking around for money-making industries that they could invest in. And they found us. And you and I know that run well, this is a 15, 20, 25% net ongoing, without hurting your customer base and in essence screwing your marketplace. You can do the right thing and do well in this industry, and private equity found us. So they're standing there with buckets of money,
Mm-hmm.
and our old guys are standing there, guys and gals, thinking about how do I get out of this thing? And there's just a new opportunity coming because the PE money is here. Consolidation has begun. So there's a wholesale shift in what the next 20 years is going to look like relative to the 70 that preceded it. And so business as usual ain't going to hold up. And you and I talk about that when we're out. And this is kind of the main topic of the day that you and I are sharing with this marketplace. We can't do it the same way for the next 20 years. We did it for the 50 before.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael. And I know that in addition to the leadership intensive that you have, that you're often presenting and doing training on, you do leadership coaching, but you also do help with exit strategies for the shift that's coming. Is that correct?
That's always where I start. It's,
Okay.
when I first get to know somebody, it's like, well, let's sit down and talk. And it's like, what do I want to know about them? I want to know why it's existential questions, Josh. And based on what we both do, you're going to love this, right? It's where do we come from? Where are we going when we're dead? Those are the two end questions. In the middle is like, what are we doing here? And who should we be? Right? Those questions. And so I zone in on the middle ones, but I start at the outside. How did you get into this business? That's the birth question, right? The death question. And this is when do you want out? What do you think you want out to look like? And then in the middle is, okay, who are you? What's your compass or purpose set of statements? And then what's your character statements? What are your core values, operating principles, things? So I start there, brother. I start there every time because I want to know why they're in the business, when they want out of the business and under what terms. And so I start with life after retirement conversations, right? After you're out, what's your life going to look like? So we can frame it and make sure you get there from here. Then we back into exit strategy. What does the business need to look like when you sell it to the next person or group or whatever? And then we back up with exit strategy in mind from the old consulting model. That's the to be future that you've got in your head. Now we back up to the as is. Okay, well, let's look at what you got in your hand today. That's a great vision on the horizon. It's got time attached to it, money attached to it, whatever's attached to it. But now what do you got in your hand? And then there's a gap between them. And we figure out how to close that gap and move them progressively step by step in the direction of that intended future. So I always say to people, you don't start with the end in mind. Great Stephen Covey chapter in his book, but it's the truth. He got that from consulting. Consulting didn't get that from him, right? The concept is if you don't start with knowing where you're going, Yogi Berra, you're going to end up wherever you find yourself. And that's not a good thing in our industry at all, based on what's happening, right? So
Michael, there's so much. I mean, you're speaking the same language that I often share, which I knew this was going to happen. There's so much alignment, but already I'm hearing some of it. You alluded to the birth, the death. There's that dash in between, and something that I ask every shop owner as I begin with them is 3 questions to ask themselves, which is where are you going? That's your vision. How are you getting there? That's your mission. And why are you doing it? That's your purpose. And that's really encompassing of the dash. But I want to go back to where we began on this episode and really how there's so much power in networking. And one chance encounter that you had at a coffee shop really changed your life and that shop owner's life for the rest of your lives. That's how you got into this industry. Now walk through how you got involved with the Institute, what that looked like, the time in which that you were in the industry beforehand. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I was, I flirted with retirement. I helped this friend that I met in the coffee shop. I was sort of trying to figure out what I was going to do. And, it turned into something more serious in this manner. My friend accidentally happened to be one of the better known people in the country in terms of his reputation. I didn't know that. He's just a smart guy I met that wanted to have an interesting conversation, right? Turns out he was the shop of the year the first time Napa gave that award away, that kind of a level. He was in a long term, and I'm going to come back to peer groups and serendipity and all that cool stuff. He was in a peer group of super top shops, and I was doing this further down the leading edge stuff with him. And he'd go off to his peer group meetings and they're like, where do you get this stuff from? And he goes, oh, I know a guy, right? Meeting after meeting. Finally, he's like, do you want to meet him? And they're like, sure. So he came back from the meeting and he said, would you be interested in kind of connecting with some of my friends who like the kind of stuff we're talking about? So it was right before COVID in 2020, February. where we sat down. I didn't even have a company at that point. I'm just sole proprietoring to help some friends, that kind of a thing. Sat down 12 guys that were kind of rock stars in the industry, owners, all showed up from different parts of the country, sat in a hotel 1 month before COVID became a real media conversation, right? We spent 2 days talking about the future of the industry, mergers and acquisitions, consolidation, the pressure on the baby boomers, all that kind of cool stuff that I love to talk about all the time. And at the end, it was like, so would you guys want to start a peer group? A merger and acquisition peer group. And it was like, and so my friend says, okay, hands up, who's in? And all 12 hands are like, I'm in, I want to play. Right. So we started and it turned into 35 companies. I had about 50 of them total, going across different parts of the country. And that's how I bumped into the Institute. It turns out accidentally I had taken some of the senior clients not away from, but they were now sharing with me Institute clients. And so Cecil and Kent are fond of telling the story that I moved all the way from one end of the SWOT analysis to the other. At first, I was an external threat because I'm taking some of their clients and some of their revenue away. And then I was an opportunity that was out there in the market that they hadn't seen before. And then I was a weakness inside the Institute. And then Cecil invited me to talk to the Institute's summit at the beginning of 2023. And I stood up and did my thing, and I had an hour, and I was like, I need more time. They're like, take another half hour. And there was like 300 companies there, and they were like, oh my God, this is awesome. Cecil looks at me and he goes, we got to do this together. Because up to that point, Josh, we were talking about, 2 train track rails and how it would be smart if we at least had a bridge of wood between them, not to get too far apart, but let's just let the same clients run down both tracks, and you get them ready and I'll take them as far as they want to go. And then all of a sudden we decided to do it together. So that's me at the Institute. We looked at our brands. The Institute brand's been around longer than I have. Cecil's been around, if he was here, I'd say it to his face, a wonderful old curmudgeon in the industry that Cecil holds a class, it's full because everybody wants to know what Cecil has to say, right? Yeah. He's got that, and I don't have that reputation. So it's like, let me just tuck under the Institute brand and let's build the top end programs and let's do this thing together. And we started that end of 23. So we're a year and a half-ish into it at this point. And just really, I love it because there's a platform of strong shop operations, traditional approach to the business that becomes a wonderful foundational platform to do the high-end stuff we're talking about. If you're a rickety shop and it's spotty and you're not sure what your day is going to look like, it's hard to keep your eyes on the horizon and think big. You look down because you're in pain today. And so it's become a really nice marriage for me and the Institute, the way we've mixed it together. So
I think it's necessary. I like the analogy that you used. There's a marriage, and ultimately even my own slogan is people plus process equal profit. And ultimately there's a lot of great coaching companies out there in the industry, and a lot of them are, I think, more focused on the performance side of things. But when you can marry the people and the performance together, like your focus, like your type of coaching is on people first. It's the soft skills, it's the leadership skills to really help this individual not only lead others that they're formerly leading, but lead themselves. Because when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And so if you can instill that in them and then marry that with some performance coaching and additional coaching and training that the Institute, which is so great at, has to offer, I mean, that's a massive recipe for success. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. And speaking of what you guys are doing, so you specifically are heading up and leading the leadership intensive. The next class, is that coming up in October in North Carolina?
We got the next one coming up in July in Chicago.
July, okay.
Yeah. The dates are on the website. I think it's 20 through 22, but I'd have to triple check that. So if you go to the Institute website and look under events, the leadership intensives are in there.
Excellent.
And we have a few more in this year before the end of the year. And then we're going to increase the pace of them next year because the demand for it's getting bigger, which is great. It's good to be able to share the content with it. So,
well, share with the audience what the leadership intensive is, and as well as if I'm listening thinking, you know what, I think I need leadership coaching or training, or I think I need to work on this rather than that. What is this that I'm going to be getting? If I go to leadership intensive, what can I expect?
Yeah, I'm going to put it in context, and then I'll come back and answer your specific question. It's as you and I talked about it going into it, if you have a strong shop operation and just pretend you're doing it the way the industry's always done it, right? It's good front desk work, strong back shop work, happy customers that come back by and large. Profits are good and stable. It doesn't matter what the level is. Obviously, it's 10 plus is nice. 20 plus is even better, right? On a sustainable basis, but the revenue is not spotty. In the investment world, I'm going to put it this way. That's called the tangibles. Those are the tangible results that the investors would look at. And that what I just described, we would consider to be a top shop. They would consider to be an average operating company. And I'm not putting our industry down at all, but our expectations are lower than I think what we should have as a group. And so to get to your leadership intensive questions in a second, for the way I see it, when I looked into this industry at the very beginning, there's an opportunity to build on the strength of a well-run operation and say, look, there's layers of improvement you can put on top of that. Josh, what you and I do in leadership intensives, a 3-day kickoff to the concepts, and I'll get into it in a sec. It's the beginning of this idea that on top of average or normal performance or even high performance in our industry terms, there's a higher level of performance available when you build a human-centric, mastery-driven kind of a culture environment. You build a high-performance culture on purpose. You don't just fall backwards into whatever you have. You create that. And in essence, what you're doing is you're raising up a place where the rock star unicorns of the industry come to you because this is the best place they've ever found. And in so believing with you and the shared meaning that you have, back to your purpose statements, your mission, vision, values, right? The character statements of values and principles. When those people relate to you, and it's internally with your team and externally with your customers, those people come and they want to be a part of the meaning of what you do. And those are higher performing people. So now all of a sudden you have a higher performance rock star unicorn kind of a group that's out delivering your well-run, strong shop peers. And then there's a step beyond that. Now you're making more money and the investors look in and they say, where's the value that you're building into the company? And you say, well, look at my financials. That's not what I'm asking. Look at the people. Look how happy. That's not what I'm asking. How are you reinvesting what you're making to build value from an investment perspective? And our shop owners, with understanding of not having been trained in this stuff, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's like, okay. So then step 2, beyond the human centric leverage to make more money, have more potential, is to reinvest it in a way that makes the company from an investment perspective even stronger. And then that takes you to the final sort of application, is to say, now I really have an engine. I have an F1 vehicle that I can race out in our marketplace and it can outperform anybody. How many races do I want to race in? Maybe I want more than one vehicle, and you can, if you want to, get into growth mode. And that's supplemented by the fact that there are baby boomers that want out, and they may or may not have built value into their company. But if you're in acquisition mode, you can kind of cherry pick some heck of a good companies out there and build quite a portfolio for scale to then be able to take to a professional investment community. And so in a way, this is kind of like a lifestyle bell curve, right? It's if you climb the bell curve of our company toward the top end, as you go further up, there's more opportunity available from a business standpoint. And that's how I come at it. So back to the leadership intensive question, it's really kind of a transition point from good people running a good shop the way it's always been done with what we don't know about humans. The leadership intensive is a 3-day chance to just kind of drive a stake in the ground and go, okay, and I'll get into enough detail to, I think, take us down the road you might have been thinking about, which is, if you don't know how humans work neurologically, right, how the brain works, if you don't know the psychology of why people are the way they are, where did they come from and how did they get, so that's hardware questions, software questions, and then self-image type questions of what's my limitation and to what I even try to do. If you don't understand that, you go to lead people and you treat them like a machine, like some kind of a cog in a machine or like some kind of a nav. You don't know people, they don't know you, and so you're all guessing while you're trying to get real work done. Leadership intensive digs into the stuff I just mentioned. It's the neuropsychology of humans and then the application of that in uber high performance settings. And then it's just instructive to the owners. And what happens is an owner will come and they're like, oh my God, why didn't somebody teach me this at 16 years old? I'd have led my life differently. And they go, 1, can I bring my family? And 2, can I bring my key leaders? And it's like, sure. And so then it goes down a level and the key leaders are like, oh my God, the rest of the guys need to know. So we just keep taking it further down into the organization. And people are using it at this point for sort of screening, if you will, an opportunity to do some development of pre-leaders, early leaders who are still in the pipeline, but they go, this guy or this gal has phenomenal perspective. And I'd like them to get this information earlier in their career than I got it at whatever 55-year-old owner level. And so that's kind of where the popularity of this is coming from, is it's really human centric, and it's really deep about how people are and relate to each other. And then we take it back to apply it to the industry as we go through the program. And people are like, this changes everything I do. It's like, yes, it does. Experience after experience with that. And that's then, brother, the platform for the high performance organization is, once you're coming at it from a human centered, not a production centered perspective, now they're bringing the best of what they have inside to offer it to you, which they were never safe to do in a production centric environment before.
That's so.
I mean, it's really, this. It's magnificent as you unpack it, and the light bulbs go off for people watching them move into a new way of seeing their relationships with their team. Then you start acting differently with your customers in a better way.
That's it.
And then you draw better customers out of the market too. You get the unicorn customers to come to you too, the loyal brand ambassadors. So.
It's not only is it game changing for the shop, but it's also life changing for the individual. And
absolutely right.
Like, what you're doing is you're creating a paradigm shift in these individuals' ways of thinking and doing things. And with perspective, the way that we view things drives the way that we do things. And you're able to shift a perspective that they've been believed for years leading up into the intensive. They have this belief system, which are sometimes limiting beliefs that they believe are true. And one of the greatest mistakes any of us can make is assuming all of those beliefs are true. But I think one thing we probably both align on, Michael, is we know that our thoughts dictate feelings, and our feelings dictate actions, and our actions dictate results. So when you can start changing the way that you're thinking and changing the way that you are believing, sometimes limiting beliefs, you ultimately change your results in a massive way, because the actions you take are no longer preceded by unhealthy thoughts and unnecessary feelings.
Yep.
So it can be a game changer for folks.
I'm going to run with that. I'm looking at our screens right now, right? Our backgrounds. And we were talking about this yesterday. I looked up, I go, where'd you get the belief from? And we were talking about that. And I've got what's above the picture on my wall too, because we both know, and I'm saying that for a reason. We have it up on the wall because what we believe drives how we behave. And, one of my favorite stats I teach in the leadership intensive when we unpack to really have that hit home. We think we're these cognitive beings that are thinking every moment with a new creative thought. 90+% of our behavior is 100% habitual. 100%.
Yeah.
Which means it comes out of successfully doing the same thing in the past, and we just cheat and apply the same thing in the future. And so that's the point. The habits, the belief structures, the mindsets, what you're talking about, that drives our lives. And so if we don't know what we believe, we're in trouble. So we got to pause, and it's exhausting. You know this, you do this for a living. People are exhausted. You start challenging their belief structures with growth in mind, not to be mean, right? In our crazy antagonistic world, this is done the other way, is to say, let's go back to, how did you get that belief? I'm like, well, then they start digging. It's like, wow, I'm not sure I would have put that there now that I thought about where it came from. Is it serving you now? Maybe not. Here's where it is, but here's where it's not. It's like, okay, so what's a better belief? And then they stop and they look at it. And then you can, and again, you and I know, you can make that a cognitive behavioral therapy approach to long suffering, slow change, or you can do it with visualizations and affirmations overnight. And you can have a new tape in 21 to 28 days. And that's your new belief structure. And so your habits will follow shortly thereafter.
And Michael, we're going to get to the truth tapes that you just alluded to here in a bit, but I want to piggyback on what you just shared, because a stat that I love to share is that humans have up to 60,000 thoughts per day. And studies show that 80% of our thoughts are negative and 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. And so it's no wonder why we regularly experience stress and worry and doubt and concern and anxiety and fear. But you and I both know that fear is simply false evidence appearing real. Absolutely. And we're always going to find evidence in the things that we believe. So here's the thing, like, as a faith-based person, I know you and I share this as well, Michael. The similarity between faith and fear is that they both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. So as we begin to start shifting a paradigm and shifting perspectives, we are starting to operate differently. And one of the different things that we can do is move from a fear mindset to a faith mindset. It's from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It's from it's from a process-driven approach to a people-driven approach. where we start getting better with people. We know that connection is what creates engagement, and engagement is ultimately what increases performance. But I want to go back and have you share with the audience the concept of truth tapes, because this is game changing for folks. And if you haven't heard it, Michael's going to unpack something that is really something that will potentially change your life when it comes to truth tapes. So go ahead and share.
It does change lives. And I do want to put one more comparison on the list that you and I already talked about in prior conversations: scarcity and abundance.
Thank you. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
The concept, that scarcity, and you and I talked about, you suggested it. So I'm throwing it out there because I'm going to give you credit. It was your idea, right? But I want to put it back on the list because it's this fear-based scarcity. What if it doesn't? What if it can't? What if it won't? What if I'm surprised? The opposite side of that is, yeah, but what if it does?
Yeah.
And
What's
is
the
there a
best that could happen?
limitation? Is there a limitation in the universe to success? And some people are like, well, in my experience, it's like, that's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you your experience.
Yeah.
I asked you what the practical, limitations are. And when you dig in it that way there, and that's where the truth tapes come in, right? We are, and Maxwell said it perfectly. And again, he got it from the science. The science didn't get it from him. The ceiling is the limit that a person walks under. And so he applied it to leadership and said, if the leader has a ceiling or a limit, a lid, I think he called it, then that's as far as the organization is going to go. But this is true of humans too. It's what you're talking about, right? And you and I know these examples, right? You go back to elementary school and you're in soccer and you have a coach and there's a dad coaching or a mom who don't know what they're doing coaching, and they don't know anything about child development, and they're trying to help their little kids, be the best little team or whatever. And so they may say to a player who's not very fast or not very adept with the ball, Johnny, you're not going to be the best soccer player in the world. We're going to put you back here on defense, or if you can't really run, we'll put you in the goal, right? And we're not going to have you move much because our little scorers are up on the front end. And, but I want to play for the Brazilian soccer team, right? My child's half Brazilian. So I'm like, okay, and that's it. What could I say to him now? Oh, I don't know, son. That's a long stretch, right? There are really, really good people play at that level. Not a lot of people. What am I doing? I'm helping him manage his expectations so he's not disappointed in his life. But Josh, you know this, what am I also doing for him? I'm putting a ceiling over his head to say, don't expect to be among the best in the world because only a handful of people make it there. So really, I've slapped a lid over his head, right? Go ahead.
No, sorry. I mean, the way I describe it is you're really putting a label on himself that ultimately creates this limitation, because labels create limitations. And it's this, I go back to, there's a quote that I love from NQ, and he says, defining myself is like confining myself. So I undefined myself to find myself.
I love that.
And when you put that label on someone, you are defining that person, or they might be doing it themselves as well. If they're putting a label on themselves, you're defining that person, which subsequently confines that person. And it's a struggle for us to finally shift a paradigm after years of believing something that may have not even been true to begin with.
You asked about truth tapes. That is the leadership intensive. It is wrapped around the human mind function, the needs pyramid, and satisfaction in life. Those are the three psychological pillars that we use to platform all this. And it comes back to these truth tapes. And brother, this is what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Our truth tapes that we hold is our sanity truths. These are the things that we base our view of the world on, the filters, if you will, that we look at all of our experience and filter it through, are these truth tapes. And these truth tapes are what you're talking about. People put those in there. Right. So your coach put it in there about your athletic capacity. Your teachers put it in there about your learning capacity. Your parents put it in about whether you're a good kid or not, whether you're a smart kid or not, whether you're a kind kid or not. Just the ancillary conversations we have. Why do you, in the parent's moment of anger, why do you always say this? And, nobody always does anything, but all of a sudden there's a tape. This is how I roll. This is what I always do. The kids are wide open blackboards, but guys, so are the adults. We don't even know. The self-talk that we have, guys, I'll say, and Josh, you probably coach on this all the time. I do. Self-talk in our industry tends to be
it's
terrible.
It's horrible.
It's like sarcasm and antagonism and, that's just the way we are. It's like, don't use that as an excuse. That's pathetic, right? It may be just the way we are, but this is putting ceilings over people every time. Mm-hmm. Ha ha, Josh, you're the dumbest guy I've ever seen. Ha ha, Josh, right? It's like, how the brain takes that in. The ha ha is not attached to it. It goes in as a fact, just like something out of an encyclopedia. And if you don't curate it going in, you got a stack of happy facts and a stack of yucky facts, and those things go on the yucky side, but that stuff will outweigh the happy stuff. And so we we have to proactively understand and change this stuff. And you teach this, I teach this. That's the fundamentals of the leadership intensive is how do we get this way? And should we be? And let's start going in. And this is what we do. And it's exhausting for people. We spend 3 days unpacking what they think they believe. And it's exhausting because it's like, it's easy to be in habitual form. And when I really make you stop and use your brain, like we're talking about, it takes so much mental energy. Habits are there because they're easy. Going outside the habit road is burns more energy than digging ditches is what I tell people. So but this is necessary. If you're going to be a master of anything, you're going to break through, you got to go on the other side of your self-limitation and take this into sports, right? The guy that I learned most of this stuff from, or a chunk of this stuff from anyway, his application to this was professional golf. And he was a coach to the top professional golfers. One, because he loved the game, but two, because golf's a mental game, right? The amount of a change on your grip to make that ball go 3 feet to the left on a 300-yard drive is a very, very small physiological change. It's a lot. Most of it is right here. And this is tennis. This is basketball. This is football. And sports are great because you get a beginning and an end in a time frame. Like our lives go on for, 40 years, 50 years, professional, 60 years, whatever. That takes a long time to play these trends out. I love sports because it happens within the window of the moment of competition, right? And then you can try and prove this stuff. And so that's where I cut my teeth on this stuff. Same performance stuff, the same stuff applies in business too.
I really appreciate the analogy that you just shared with golf, because something that I do, it's something that whenever I help my clients unpack some challenges and really their truth tapes, I call it a roots to results coaching method is what the way I do it, because I'm asking questions and really we're helping dig and get to the bottom of where they're at and what is rooted there. But when you talk about forcing people essentially to get comfortable being uncomfortable, you and I both know that growth and comfort can't coexist. That analogy with golf, I like that you talked about how it's just a small change to make a different impact. And something that I often share with my own clients, I remind them like, hey, I work with a counselor once a month. I work with my own coach twice a month. I'm also married to a licensed counselor, so I get free counseling even when I don't want it, which is all the time. But here's the thing. I need it. And what I know is that these folks are helping me unpack my own truth tapes and helping me see my own blind spots and helping me make small incremental degree shifts to ultimately make a massive difference. Because a lot of us, and I fell in this category as well years ago when I first started counseling, because counseling was my first professional help that I got. And then shortly thereafter realized, I can't not afford counseling. I'm also going to go hire a coach. And since then I've hired 3 different coaches since then. But what I realized is I was thinking I had to make this massive 180-degree shift from where I was to get to where I wanted to go. And very quickly I realized my counselor specifically started helping me make a small, I'll call it a 3-degree shift, 2 or 3-degree shift. And ultimately it helped really change my life and change the trajectory of my life. But that analogy really kind of took me back to the fact that we're all so close and we don't realize it. We're this close. And with a simple shift in perspective, it can make a world of difference. You alluded to the golf coach being one of your influencers. I'll ask you, who else has helped influence your own way of thinking and your own coaching?
It's really, the best way to answer that is I had one guy, you and I were talking at the beginning. You like to ask like, who's one of the main people? I'm going to go right back to when I was 22 years old. And I tell this story in the leadership intensive when I remember it. I started out of college with a bachelor's degree in, organizational psychology, mass communications, that kind of thing. And I was qualified in 1982. Yes, I'm an old guy to do very little.
You're a wise guy, Michael. Wise.
I'm a wise. Well, at this point, look how gray it's turned me, right? So I'm going to claim wisdom just from gray hair. But no, I got out of school in a recession. And my chosen profession was not really hopping in a recession. So I took a sales job selling big financial products to big corporations on behalf of another corporation. I mean, it was just Fortune 100 level stuff, which got me started in all this, right? But at the end of the day, I'm 22, maybe 23 years old. I'm in the front seat of a car, driving a rental car, driving the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar organization across one of the U.S. states in the middle of nowhere at night. and he kicks his shoes off, and he's just a nice man. When he's in New York, he's got a bulletproof limo with an armed driver and all that. Here's little old me, right, driving along, and I'm just a kid. I'm too dumb to know better. So he's just the nicest man in the world. He said, so let me ask, what do you want to do with your career? And I said, well, with all due respect intended, at some point I'd like to have your job. And he kicks his head back and he laughs, but it wasn't a ha ha laugh. It was like a happy laugh, right? He said, let me give you one piece of advice that if you follow this in your life, you can do anything you want to do. And I said, okay, what is it? And he said, it's going to be counterintuitive. You think you know better than this, but I'm going to tell you this, and I'll tell you why. Always, always, always hire people who are better at their jobs than you are. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's counterintuitive, right? It makes you think that at some point, all these rock stars are going to pass you by. He didn't use that word. That's a more modern word, right? All these heroes or whatever he called them are going to pass you by. But he goes, that's not how it works. Because he goes, you know how it really works? And he said, I've built my career on this. And you see the seat that I sit in now. He said, the people who really know what they're doing look at the team itself. And the first question they have is, oh my God, look at how fantastic those results are. Who built that? Who got those results? And then they look at the individual rock star. He said, what they really look at, the people who are savvy and wise and really know what's going on, they lean forward and they go, who built that team? Because the concept is whoever built that team can turn around and do it again and again and again, and that person is savvy enough to bring in the very best talent they can find that can outperform them on every front of their expertise, if that makes sense, right? That the master, and I went on and did business school later in my career to do this too. Took a program for CEOs that was fundamentally to teach a CEO in every function of the business enough to bring the experts to the table to put a cogent overall strategy together, but let the masters do what they do with the power and the freedom to do it. But your job as the CEO is to kind of keep the wagon on the road while all these thoroughbreds are having you run at light speed. And that to me, Josh, when people say, what was your greatest leadership lesson? It was that incidental, age 23, in a dark car, talking to a super nice man who dropped a nugget that I've been following my whole life. And it works exactly that way. And I teach it to every client I have. You probably do something similar. Same thing, right? Always hire people who are better than you. And by the way, that means, yeah, brother, go ahead. No, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was going to say Steve Jobs was quoted as saying, we don't hire people to tell them what to do. We hire them so they can tell us what to do. And
that's exactly right.
One of the things that you just alluded to for the second time in this episode is chance encounters. And one thing that I do share with folks, and this is really kind of coming from a faith-based perspective too, is I personally believe that God puts people in our life who are actually depending on us to fulfill God's purpose for our life. So like they're depending on us to do our purpose, which means that God gave us this day for a reason. Anyone who's listening to this episode does not know what it's like to not wake up the next day. Like our entire life, we've woken up the next day. So the fact that we get to be here is another day that we get to make an impact, that we get to take our kids to school, that we get to go to work, that we get to go make a difference. And there are customers and guests in our life that we're working with on a daily basis who are there for a reason. And what I hear you saying is twice, you gave two examples of how you captured those opportunities. And the unfortunate truth is there's a lot of folks who are listening, and I know I'm guilty of this as well. There's been times where I'm just head down, nose to the grindstone, just not paying mind to what's going on around me. But there are people in our life who are there for a reason. And my encouragement to anyone listening is give them the opportunity, capture the opportunity. You're one chance encounter away from having a life completely changed. And
Absolutely.
Those are two pieces that you shared today. One is the greatest feedback you ever gotten years ago. And the second has truly changed your life and that shop owner's life when you met in a coffee shop that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I were talking, a couple of times here about, and I call it divine serendipity, right? Mm-hmm. It's this concept that if you go, you got to move fast in the space that you're in, the way you're designed and wired, and you sort of need to do that. But the point always is keep your eyes open and keep your thinking flexible, if you will. And when these divine serendipity moments come along, don't, it's really easy to say, you know what, the urgent is overwhelming the important, right? Back to time management principles. And this important thing walked right past my nose. And if I had time, I'd stop, but it's too urgent right now. Knock it off. Don't do that, because we tend to overestimate, in my personal opinion, our skill in the middle of a bigger picture that's going on, simply meaning that if you just let go and hold loosely rather than holding super tight, you're going to have more success and opportunity than if you try to grip it and control it. And it's when it's loosely in your hand, legitimate conversation here, when it's loosely in your hand, that it can look like it's going to fall out, but it doesn't, kind of a thing where you have more opportunity. Because if a hard left comes and you're gripping it and you force it to go straight ahead, you just missed a turn that you could have been on that would have been a phenomenal opportunity. And to my opinion, I think the universe is full of these things. And I think God put it there. You can believe whatever you want about the universe. It's karma, serendipity, however you want to think about it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But there's more abundance potential out there than we have realized. And so the point is, if we're focused on something that only we can see, we're missing everything else around that could be. And so just hang on a little more loosely, slow down just a little bit, just be a little less stubborn, stop thinking we know. And I'll say this about our industry, and I love our guys, so I'm going to say this, and most of them will nod and some of them will be offended, and I'm sorry for those who are. There's a lot of us in this industry who love that little dopamine hit of being the answer person, the answer man or answer woman. It's like, hey boss, can I ask you a question? Sure. And you dole out these answers. But that's a great little feeling to be the smart guy in the room. But the point is what we just talked about, put smarter people in the room, number one. And number two, when they ask those questions, say, well, that's a good question. What do you think we should do? And they're like,
them.
what? Empower them.
That's it.
And then you teach them to stand on their own. And everybody, and you and I do this all the time, work on the business, don't work in it. It's like, well, how do you do that? It's like, stop answering all their questions when they have them. It's like, well, then who's going to answer them? It's like, eventually them.
Michael, if you were a fly on the wall of my coaching calls, I mean, you're literally describing what I do, because I'm like, hey, it's like, bite your tongue, stop answering the question. And in fact, I'll go ahead and share it. Like, I walk through a quick three-step, simple roots to results coaching method, which is when they ask a question, you're going to ask a question in return. So it's like, hey, what do you think? Then because what's going to happen is they're going to ask you a question, and you say, hey, you know what? Great question. You tell me, what do you think? And they're going to give you a response. And our typical inclination is to immediately give them a directive based on that response. Bite your tongue again. It's about direction, not directive. So you ask them a question, you say, tell me more. And then you say, and what else? It's the all question. Because you're forcing yourself to prompt them to give you 3 pieces of information rather than you giving them a directive. And when you do that, you start getting to the root. So, man, everything you just shared, I'm like, that's literally how I coach. So I love that.
Well, it's because people are the way people are, right? I mean, we did, the dopamine hits of social media. Guys, this is the dopamine hit of ownership. I'm just telling you, this is what happens. You become the answer person. You sit in your office and it's like scrolling and seeing cool stuff every minute. You're answering cool questions every minute and getting that little bitty hit. And then, Josh, what you and I know, right? And again, leadership intensive conversation overall, let's get out of the dopamine world of quick hits and let's get into the oxytocin world of real live, meaningful, deep, powerful relationships. And let's get into the serotonin world of strong, stable companies that we know are going to add real value to the marketplace and make differences in people's lives. That stuff is much more powerful, biochemical, right? Neurological, chemical influence and flow than these little dopamine hits. And it's compelling, man. We're technicians by and large who, came up. Most of the owners, I think, in our industry were technicians. Dopamine hits from fixing little momentary problems, car by car, moment by moment. We're used to that sort of operationally as an industry standard. And so it takes a mindset shift we were talking about to get out of that problem solving, focusing on the tactical problem of the moment model to get up into a higher level of strategic thinking, relationally based, business value based. We're moving it to a higher level. And I'll just say this to stop my current sentence at the end, right? Is to say the investors that are savvy out there are looking for oxytocin and serotonin, not dopamine. Mm-hmm. And when they open the door over the top of your company, if they look in and find what they expect, which is what we've been sort of joking about, but it's endemic to our industry. That's what they expect to see. Guys are going to pay you a price according to that. They're going to have to take it and improve it, scale it, make it better so they can sell it to the next investor. And here's my whole shtick that I do every day, all day, is let's do that before they get here. Let's be smart. Let's build rock star, leading edge, industry changing companies, become the influencers that they would like to buy anyway before they get here. And let's not have them scale up and take advantage of what we didn't know to do. Let's build it back into what we're doing so that we get the advantage of our lifetime effort that we put into this thing. And let's be smart about this as an industry. Because I got to tell you, brother, I grew up when I've been around 45 years. I've watched 30, 40 other industry verticals do exactly what we're about to do. And you know who doesn't win in that? The small and mid-sized business owner, because they don't figure this out before the private equity guys get here, and they already got it figured out. So part of what I'm doing here is like, guys, I'm waving my arms. Don't let this happen unintentionally. If you want to ignore it, that's on you. Right. But we don't have to, as an industry, not know how this is going to go. And we do know how this is going to go. So.
Michael, this has been a fantastic episode. I typically go about 30, 35 minutes and I'm like, hey, and we talked about this. We're probably going to go long today. And this will not be your last time on this podcast. I think this was tremendous value. If you're listening and you're thinking, hey, basically Michael has whet my appetite. I know I need more of this. I'm on the website right now for the Institute. If you go to the Institute, let's go to wearetheinstitute.com and click on events. You'll see the Leadership Intensive. There is one coming up in Chicago, as Michael shared, in late July. There is one in September, mid-September in Denver, mid-October in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, and then mid-November in Tampa. The one in North Carolina is actually at Lucas Underwood's shop, a friend of ours. And looking forward to getting out to one of those myself. But if you're listening, and again, if you can make it to Chicago, Illinois, to Denver, Colorado, to Blowing Rock, North Carolina, or Tampa, Florida, the next 4 months are really set up for you guys to really not only change your shop, but change your life. And Michael is the guy to do it. And so I'm honored to know you, Michael. I'm honored to see what you're doing in the industry. And man, you got a fan in me. I'll tell you that.
Well, more power to you too, my friend. I love this podcast and I love what you're building too. So let's keep holding each other's arms up in battle. That's what we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to leave you with one question. I normally ask this question on every episode pretty early, but we just got into all the good stuff. My last question to you, Michael, is pretty simple, I think. What does leadership mean to you?
Yeah. What does leadership mean to me? Leadership means that's a fantastic question. And I'm going to say as the beginning answer to that, and then I'll get to my real answer. Okay. That's been debated for 3,000 years. I'm not kidding you, right? This has been a topic of conversation that coming up with the definition has always been hard to come by. Leadership to me means walking out a higher level of existence yourself, genuinely, authentically, than the world typically operates at. That's my definition of leadership. And you and I get it from a faith platform. You can get it from an ethical platform, a moral platform. I do all kinds of teaching, and I talk about the philosophers and the Stoics and the esoterics. And we can have all kinds of fun talking about that stuff on yet another podcast if we want to do that. But the bottom line is it's like true leaders walk differently from others in something that's a higher level of meaning to the followers. If you look back as a leader and nobody's behind you, you're not a leader. You may be a manager. You're not a leader. Leaders stand for something. And the people that follow them, whether that be team members or customers or a community or an industry, are people who stand for something meaningful to the folks that follow them. And so I'll say this in sort of a way of wrapping this up from my perspective. We share this. Our world is sort of increasingly getting shakier in terms of the platforms that we used to build societal connection on. And if anything, this is a time like, I don't know, in history, maybe the cavemen, we could go back that far and get to the same, where we need people to stand up and stand for something meaningful that folks can find and come to want to be around and have that added depth of perspective to their life. You and I talked about, what do I teach? I teach what we need as human beings. I teach what satisfies us when we get what we want and all that. Every one of those things is based on meaning. And we're operating at a transactional level where meaning is not present, or even at the kind of how level of this is the differentiation, but there's no meaning in it. We're below human potential. And so leadership to me is finding your genuine, authentic meaning and then walking your life as intentionally as you can in it. And you're going to look back and there's going to be people behind you. And it's not because you're trying to charismatically call them or outwit them with intelligence or any of that stuff. It's because people are looking for authenticity and something meaningful and powerful and positive. And so walk it out, guys. You all have it in you. We all know what that means. And that's what I mean is that every single human being is a leader. It's just a matter of whether we see ourselves that way. So
Man,
I don't know if that's a good answer or a weird one, but that's how I see it.
One of the best answers I've gotten on this podcast. It really was incredible. Incredible individual in yourself, Michael. I can't thank you enough for being on here. You guys listening, go check out the Institute. Again, I'm about collaboration, not competition. It's an abundance mindset. These guys are great at what they do. Cecil and Kent Bullard, Michael Smith, Jimmy Lee. There's a fantastic team of folks who I haven't mentioned, but go check out the Institute. Go check out Michael at the Leadership Intensive. And Michael, thanks again for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Josh. Let's do more of these. This is a good time. So.
Yes, sir. And thank you for listening yet again to another episode of the Limitless Leadership Podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.